senators.
One moment, he's reeling out his vision for the Ministry of Environment, and the next moment, he slumps during a ministerial screening exercise on Wednesday.
I have participated in various professional development programs, including the general management courses, and also I have worked directly in areas of visibility and in areas of environmental protection. Water, give water. Water and sugar. Water and sugar.
Members of the National Assembly security team and staff spring into action, trying to revive Mr. Balarabe Lawal, the ministerial nominee from Kaduna State. The Senate President takes charge of the situation, immediately calling for a closed-door session. Guests, staff, aides of lawmakers and journalists wait outside the Senate chamber for news about the condition of Mr. Lawal. Less than an hour later, the closed-door session ends, and we learn that efforts are ongoing to revive the nominee. Mr. Balarabe Lawal is eventually revived, and he speaks to journalists.
I'm all right now. I've been treated, and I'm all right now. It's basically exhaustion.
Back inside the Senate chamber, the screening exercise continues, and the final nominee, Mr. Ayodele Olawande, appears before the Senate and speaks on the areas he would focus on should he be confirmed and sent to oversee the Ministry of Youths.
It is time for us to go back. In as much as a politician, we can go to the roots and corners of this country to campaign. It is time for us to go back to the schools. Train them, talk to them, let them feel the government, let them see the government, and let them touch the government.
Earlier, the Senate screened Dr. Jamila Ibrahim from Kwara State. Although lawmakers agreed not to question her, she spoke briefly on new ways of engaging young people and harnessing their talents.
I hope to use my office to positively influence Nigerian youth to have a voice at the decision-making table. And when we're designing our youth development plan, we hope to bring young people to the table so we can have an all-inclusive plan that profiles a bottom-up approach in order for young Nigerians to take ownership of the youth development plan and its implementation.
The Senate proceeds to confirm the three nominees, despite the incomplete screening of Mr. Balarabe Lawal, who slumped midway into the exercise.
The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the request of Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces for the confirmation of nominees for appointment as ministers of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The three nominees confirmed on Wednesday will join 45 other ministers who were confirmed in August and would form part of the cabinet of President Bola Tinubu. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed, the focus, that ministerial screening and subsequent confirmation. Of course, you do know the events that played out yesterday are part of what we'll be focusing on today. So we do have two gentlemen, as you may have seen there, joining us this morning. Dr. Lawal Olawumi is a chief consultant, surgeon, and chief of trauma, National Trauma Center. He's here with us in the studios. Good morning, and thank you for coming.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Nigeria.
I was just going to ask him immediately if he wasn't traumatized by what he saw on TV yesterday. You know, watching what happened.
The chief consultant of Chief Trauma Center get traumatized easily like that. Well, we also have Dr. Adetoye Alatishe, who is a founder of Alatishe Clinic in Ogun State, incidentally, as the Begonde Oba of Ososa. He also joins us, equally concerned. And good morning, thank you for joining us today on the program, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been a long time.
Yes, yes, very long time indeed. And many don't know that Oba is a doctor himself, and they're wondering, oh, are people serious? But you are.
Thank you very much.
So we'll come to you as well, sir. But let's start here with Dr. Olami. Well, yesterday when that incident occurred, and of course there were several questions, and you know, clearly it will appear differently to different people. But you saw it because we know the handling of that matter. By the way, if you look at the way they conducted themselves when the ministerial nominee, Mr. Abbas, slumped while members from his constituency were just trying to question him. And then when he slumped, the way I think it was, this is Sergeant of Arms and several other officers in the chambers approached and tried to offer help. Is that the way to go?
Well, unfortunately, we have not imbibed the spirit of basic life support in our country. Let me say that basic resuscitation will be part of the curriculum right from the primary school. And if you remember, some of us were members of Red Cross, Boys Brigade, Girl Scouts, some form of organizations in our primary and secondary school, where some of these things are taught. And you have the health sciences, the physical health educations, where these things should have been taught when we were in primary school. Basic safety measures, generally. But you find out that now these things are missing. When somebody slumps and it happened in front of you, you don't know why that has happened. The first thing is that you allow that person to lay flat. Talk to the person and be sure the person is breathing and there is pulse rate. Most of us don't know how to measure the pulse. Just holding the hand of the patient and putting your fingers, or even if you don't know, just one hand around the neck, you feel some banding. That tells you the heart is still working and blood is being pumped to the brain. And then you talk to the patient, call the patient gently, shake the patient in case, for whatever reason, he falls, and see if the patient's heart is still functioning. If the patient's heart is functioning, but the patient is not breathing, then you need to start breathing for the patient.
Now, in that video, which we see when he fell, and then they ran to him and almost lifted him up immediately, what could be the consequence of that action? Look at that.
Well, first is wrong. The people did not know what to do, because you need to lay him flat in case we don't know why he slumped. So the first thing is that this person was talking, he walked to that place. The first thing that you should think about is that his heart has stopped somehow. And that means blood is not getting to the brain. So you lay him flat. Give him some time to recover. Let the heart go back. And then you try as much as possible to talk to him there and then. You don't need crowd. You need actually to screen that place up so that it's not everybody that wants to put their idea. You need people that know what to do.
Contrary to what they were doing here.
No, it shouldn't have been on his feet.
Yeah, I saw a lawmaker, though, attempting to do some sort of screening with his agbada, with his barbaric, as the case might be, so that, at least he had some privacy. But it seemed that beyond that, we saw an immediate attempt to lift him up, almost like you're going nowhere. That's, I think,
that is very
right?
dangerous.
Yeah.
So if somebody falls, clear the surroundings for safety for him.
Yes.
And let somebody keep people away. You need some oxygen. You need that space, not to crowd on him. And then somebody that knows what to do should attend to him there. And whatever, even if he's on the road, somebody stops the cars and move him out. When you want to move him out, you move him flat, not up.
Okay, but could you explain to us, man, why did you think, is there any rationale behind trying to gather and cover him or use a babaiga to cover him? What could be the consequence?
Well, they want some privacy for him, but I don't think that is the why you cordon off a place. Cordoning is to make the place safe. It's not just that privacy. Because you may actually need to remove his shirt so that you can see his chest and do something on.
Okay. Now we've seen how not to do it. So let's come back to you and show us and tell us, look, what and how Could they have approached it?
Okay. So let's assume Mr. John, who is here with me, just collapsed, and I witnessed the collapse. So, and Mr. John is somebody known to me. I don't know whether he had any illness or not before, because Nigerians keep their medical history to their hearts. So that is also not helping. People should know what you're going through as much as possible to help you. So he has fallen. I'm not going to raise him up. He has fallen down. What I need to do is to let him lie flat and call him Mr. John. Mr. John is not answering me. Then I want to check whether he's breathing. I can see his chest. If his chest is moving up and down gently, I can say it's breathing. If I'm not sure, the back of my hand to his nose, I can feel some hair movement from there. I know he's breathing. Then the next thing I want to do is his heart working. Is he still pumping? So I put my hand on one side, just one side of his neck, and try to feel for his pulse. It's the easiest thing to do. So if that heart has stopped, that means it's the heart that stopped. It's not the breathing. So I'm going to call for help immediately and start a cardiac massage. By putting my hands, get close on to him, lock my elbows and put one hand on the other on the center of his chest and start giving him a cardiac massage. Deep and fast at the rate of 100 compressions in 1 minute. And I'm the only one, 100 compression in 1 minute. That is the rate we move. Would that be minimal compression or not forceful compression or what? Well, you have to lock here and it has to be effective. It has to be on a hard surface. So it's not on a bed where you're pressing the spring and all of us are dancing cucumber. No, that will not be effective. It has to be in the center of his chest. I lock my hands and go with the heels and then go fast at the rate of 100 compressions in 1 minute. That is when it's effective. But since I'm alone, if he's breathing, I don't need to go to that. I continue to do that and check his pulse until help comes. But if he's not breathing and the heart has stopped, I'll do 30 compressions and then use something. This will not be available most on the street. Then use a handkerchief on his mouth and open his mouth by a chin lift or a jaw thrust. And then I'll breathe into his mouth. Now, if you do that, whether a male or a female, to save his life, those are the reasons for cordoning. People might slap you thinking you're kissing him. So you need somebody who knows what you're doing and to make sure that the environment is safe for you as a rescuer. Because if not, somebody is going to eat you out the neck and say you're kissing the person. And that's dangerous, even for you, because the person that is down is already down. You don't need a second person. So people need to be trained, educated, and know that that's what they need to do.
Okay, so I'm looking, thankfully, I think it's very important to state this, that despite, those who, they meant very well, the people who were in the chambers yesterday trying to help the gentleman who collapsed, the ministerial nominee who collapsed has been confirmed now. They meant well, they just didn't know the right steps to take. Thankfully, though, their actions did not end badly. He was resuscitated, and he was even able to address journalists afterwards to say he was fine. So in that circumstance, what do you think? I mean, I'm going to come back to what you've shown us now and try and go over the steps again. But what do you think could have happened, knowing that, he was lifted up? Perhaps maybe even speaking at the point, because I saw them bring a chair, so maybe they wanted to put him on a chair. What do you think could have happened?
Well, we don't know his medical history, but in this circumstance, I think he possibly just had what you call a stage fright. And when he looked at people, his emotions dropped, his adrenaline surge dropped, and he suddenly collapsed.
That can also happen.
What we can call a vasovagal spasm will have been just what has happened.
How about exhaustion?
Well, I don't know when he slept, because that's another thing. The party for the things, party all the nights. It's possible that stress is part of the cause of this, but it will also come in form of the esophageal spasm.
People should remember, you're no Superman or Superwoman.
No, there's no Superman. Yeah, people need to rest. Politicians don't normally sleep. So,
blood sugar could have dropped.
Yeah, blood sugar is possible. He's not had a good breakfast. And people have been all over him, attending to people congratulating him overnight for his nominations, and people trying to tell him what are likely questions they might ask, about the national anthem, pick this and that. That could have stressed him.
Okay, I mean, these are all the possibilities, and thankfully, I mean, he at least he spoke to journalists, even though we understand he was still taken away in an ambulance. He still spoke to journalists to confirm that he was fine after that incident yesterday. Kabiesi, it's good to have you on the program again with us. It's been a while. Shall we say Happy New Year's to you? I'm sure that you've had a good time. Maybe, I don't know. I see here, I mean, of course, he owns a little hospital. So maybe as chairman, he's still overseeing affairs at his, not just in Ososa, but also at his hospital there in Ogun State. How did you feel watching what happened on television yesterday?
Thank you very much once again. Remember, it was my birthday, October 1st.
Yeah.
And that was almost how many years ago when I came for the last interview.
Happy birthday to you in arrears, Kabiesi.
Thank you very much. I watch channels virtually every day, particularly this program. And that of yesterday at the Senate, it was so shocking that I called some of our representatives. I was calling them, but forgetting that they won't pick their phone when they're in the Senate. I was totally shocked. But the bottom line of the whole thing is that Dr. Lawal told me I said everything that we needed to know. All I need to add was that the nominee could have been fasting, which is very common among our people. When you go for things like that, they ask you to fast. So he could have been fasting, his blood sugar could have dropped. It's altogether a symptom, as he said, esophageal syndrome, which will normally cause what we call syncopal attack. Anybody, any healthy person can have a syncopal attack. I've seen it severally. It happened to my mother when I went to Thanksgiving program in the church, when I became Kabiesi. And people were rushing to raise my mom. I said, no, leave her alone. Let her just lie down like that. And in a few, why? Because I was the one talking. And a few minutes after that, my mother got up. So the bottom line was when somebody faints like that anywhere, you let the person lie flat and probably turn the person on the side, which was what Dr. Lawal told me apparently didn't say. Because sometimes there could be some vomiting coming back from the stomach, and you don't want that person to aspirate. Now, it was so shocking that I was really worried that the Senate staff were not trained in simple methods of resuscitation. Raising the guy up could have killed him. It could have just dropped. And I was really worried. So for me, it was not a good thing, but I think we need to go back to educate everybody. From primary school, as the doctor, the consultant has said, to the village people. And that's what we do here all the time. Giving medical expenditure all the time. And that's one of the reasons why I also keep my practice, because that's my first law. So I need to make sure that my people are well aware, and then every now and then, every opportunity we get, we train our people in simple resuscitation, because it could save life. And it has saved life several times, especially when I'm around. My colleagues, my other colleagues will tell you, when I'm at an engagement, when we are at an engagement, I'm always looking at everybody as a potential patient or as a potential candidate for either collapsing or something like that. And it has happened in very important occasions, and I've had to come in to save people in such conditions.
Well, if I have to come to Ososa for any celebrations, I certainly will feel very reassured knowing that if anything should happen medically, at least Kabiesi is at hand. I think the prayer will be that nothing happens to Kabiesi himself, because I imagine at that time, maybe we'll all panic. But, you know, beyond that, I mean, you've mentioned something very, very important, which is the fact that, you know, you will have to ask how come people in the Senate, not the members themselves now, but the sergeant at arms, security personnel, you know, who should have maybe basic training and first aid, didn't quite know what to do. We've seen in...
And some of the senators are even medical
doctors, you know, which was quite surprising. We've seen one or two of them who actually say they are medical doctors. So you have to ask, you know, precisely how come, maybe they weren't thinking, maybe the doctors were not there.
Dr. Ibrahim was there. Maybe she must have left. Or she was after her screening.
Possibly. So, I mean, a number of things could have happened. But I know in public places, like in the chambers, for instance, we see in some, I don't know how many places in Nigeria have them, defibrillators. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. Just in case, because as you said, it could have been worse. It could have been, it might not have been exhaustion. It might not have been, it could have been a heart attack. Anything could have happened. You now have to begin to ask, how serious are we in actually administering things like first aid should such a thing happen, knowing the kind of people, knowing the age grade of people that we have going to those types of institutions? Have we really paid serious attention? I mean, to be a senator, I think at least you must be 35 upwards or thereabouts, since the law was changed. But we don't have any senator who's 35. Maybe in the House of Representatives. Senators are usually from 40 upward, thereabouts. So knowing that people who go to the Senate are people who are, you know, of a certain age grade and above, do you think that we've really paid attention? And maybe I'm being partial to senators, but let's start from them, because this is where this incident happened. That we've really paid attention to the sort of first aid, to the sort of medical emergencies that could happen, and the sort of first aid that should be administered should such an incident happen.
We need to ask ourselves this question. It's been spoken about all the time that people should do medical fitness examination. It is a tradition. Any doctor will tell you people have to do medical fitness, particularly going into offices. And you have to be able to show your medical fitness certificate. We do it every time. Companies around this area, even when they are going to employ our people, I don't tell them, I don't allow them to employ people just like that. We do medical fitness for everybody. It is interesting to know that political office holders don't do medical fitness, don't submit. It is not even part of the requirements. Whereas it should be, because you have to be fit to occupy such position. I know the offices that I will not go into. If you give me, I won't take governorship office for any amount per second. I won't become a president for any amount per second, because I know the stress that these people go through. I've worked with governors before. I've sat down next to them, and I'm wondering, you see swollen legs because these people don't sleep. They sit all night, all day, and I assume that even in the Senate and all these places, it is the same. So we need to have a tradition where it is part of it. It is compulsory for people to have medical fitness. When I sit in meetings, like I said the other time, there was an incident when one of my high chiefs had a heart attack, and he thought it was an arrow from one of his enemies. And I had to call my nurse. We took his blood pressure. It was 210, 130. 210 over 130. We admitted him straight away. He got better. He's still alive today. I said, what about your enemies, the arrows and all that stuff? And we usually joke about it. We've seen people who go to the hospital, chemist, to buy drugs, and those owners of pharmacies don't ask them basic medical questions. People take oral hypoglycemics, and then they go into hypoglycemic shock. And we don't have the problem of trying to resuscitate them. Sometimes, unfortunately, you lose such people, because when you are hypoglycemic through oral drugs, it's so difficult to resuscitate you. If you get hypoglycemic by using insulin, it's a simple thing as just giving you glucose, and probably you come around. So we need to talk about medical fitness, and this is why I'm so passionate about it. Because of the level of our exposure in Nigeria, it must be compulsory for everybody to be under that national health insurance program. So now, when everybody is covered, then you know you have to go to the hospital rather than go to chemists or trying to treat yourself directly. And I believe, and I must mention it, that I think this is the time. And the reason why I'm saying that is that because by the advent of Mohamed Ali Pate, whom I've worked with very well, who can leave a potential job in America to come back here to be Minister of Health, I think within the next 2 years, we are going to have to overcome some of these things. The problem of having our people to be on national health insurance, even at the rural area, even in the villages, these are issues that are very, very important. Losing a life is not worth any amount at all. So we need to do something about it. And the way we can go about it is to cascade down from top to the bottom by issue of principles and what we need to do at the rural area. You can imagine in my area here, I cover close to 4 towns. There are no medical doctors except me. No medical doctors. The problem, and because of my love for my people, I make it a point of duty on a daily basis to talk to people about health, bring professionals from outside our area to come and do medical expenditure here, almost on a monthly basis.
Kabisi, well, Ayo and Buki, I don't know if you were sipping tea while Dr. Lami was just doing that demonstration on this, but remember, don't take away your iPad or whatever you have if any of such thing happens around you. So remember, he says, look, you have to lock it here and here. I tried when I was looking at you, but also remember, it's not this way, but you have to ensure that the pressure from your shoulder comes all the way to your hands, and you lock your fingers here so that the tips of your fingers don't scratch in. So something like this.
Yes, at the center of the chest of the patient.
At the center.
But 100.
Yes.
That's a
so
lot.
You have to be fit too. And that's why you alone should not just take on that tax. Immediately, once you assure your patient needs resuscitation, you call for help. And
is his hand rightly positioned? Do it again.
It's just going to be
somewhere like this, right?
Yeah, somewhere there. And that's yes. Then your pressure is from your shoulder. This must.
This way?
Yes, but you don't do it at the rate of 100 compressions in 1 minute.
Try it again, James. Let's see.
Let's go to Lagos. Ayo,
let's test your fitness level this morning.
Go ahead.
Well, just one question that I would have loved to ask Chemelin and Maokwe of our medical doctors, specialists in there. You know, one of the issues that was raised, you know, on the floor of the Senate is the call for sugar for the individual there. I've checked, you know, one of what Kabisi said earlier, syncopal attack. One of the main causes of it is extreme stress and loss of blood supply to the brain. So I'm wondering, that call for that first aid, sugar and the rest of them, how salient is that? I also heard that, you know, the Kabisi mentioning simple glucose that would help someone to be resuscitated. What would be that call for? Kabisi, maybe I should ask you, what could that call for sugar mean? How injurious or helpful is it? That's for Kabisi.
That person concerned is a diabetic patient and he takes insulin daily. I happen to know some of my patients that are diabetic. So if for whatever reason he has not eaten, because taking insulin means that you have eaten. But if for whatever reason you took overdose of insulin, you could have what we call hypoglycemic situation, in which case that kind of person faints. Giving the person glucose immediately is the first thing if you know that the person is diabetic, and it can never be injurious. The worst that will happen is that his level of glucose will go up, and then he will go back and take his drug. But it is not safe for people who are using oral hypoglycemics. That's what I'm saying. And it is wrong for anybody to be on the medication of oral hypoglycemic is drugs, tablets that brings down your glucose. It is wrong for anybody to take them without the supervision of medical doctors, because they have their own side effects, and you need to do tests regularly, at least twice in a day.
Well, that's instructive because as the other medical doctor had observed rightly earlier on, we don't know the medical history of Mr. Balarabe. But Kabiesi, you touched on something earlier on that I would have loved, us, to expound on amid this conversation, which is the strain of the work of politically exposed persons. Besides Mr. Balarabe, the former EFCC boss had slumped during a public event at the presidential villa in 2021. We had a former minister who also slumped at a public event. As a matter of fact, the papers also reported today that a journalist at the National Assembly slumped and died. We don't know who, we don't know the identity of the journalist now. Talk us through the nature of the work of politically exposed persons and the lifestyle that they should adopt in order to avoid this unpleasant eventualities amid the kind of stress that they go through.
Well, a number of people who are exposed and are not just, when I say exposed, are aware of their medical status, do take care of themselves. But a number of political office holders are under so much pressure that even when they want to take a rest, they cannot take a rest. When I was in politics, I remember we had a marathon meeting where everybody in the hall slept at one time or the other, including myself, including the deputy governor, and the only person who did not sleep or doze was the governor. At the end or towards the tail end of the meeting, we had to be asking him if he is a witch or a wizard, because he did not even get up to go and weep. And beyond that, most political office holders are under one kind of pressure or the other, apart from family, constituency, and then having to make having to make up with whatever you are promised to do in the office. So it is just not done. I heard somebody saying that when he goes to the office, he closes at 4. He makes sure everybody closes at 4 p.m. But not with our people. You sometimes go to their office, you find them working till wee hours. It is wrong. And that is why some of them have to pay with their health. So we have to insist on that. And then in any case, like I said, it is important for us to put people who are medically fit in office. It is, when I hear people who are in office and they are disabled or whatever, probably they are not in executive offices. People who are in the executive offices or in the Senate, National Assembly, they are seriously under stress. And I believe that we need to make sure that they know about this and they are well aware and take care of themselves.
Salami, give us your concluding thoughts on this matter, because look, this is, people may think it's trivial, but you're talking about saving lives here, and you're involved in training several people across different government agencies and private sector as well. So talk to us before you go.
Well, this will be with us. It's with us. It's not witchcraft, because many people think when somebody falls and dies, it's witchcraft. We have not handled resuscitation well in this country. We need concerted effort, formal, well-planned, to introduce children what to do in cases of emergency. And like medicine takes 7 years, so it's not something you start today and then you get there tomorrow. No, it has to start from primary school, letting people know that illness, collapse, deaths are real. They're not caused by witchcraft, they're caused by sicknesses. When there's sickness or illness, you can't temporize and keep the person alive until a professional comes or the person can get professional treatment. We need to introduce into the curriculum of students. You don't need to do earth sciences as WAEC exams, but you need to have some basic knowledge about this. We all do sports. People collapse and die during sports because they strain their hearts. So we need to put all these facilities in place. Primary school, secondary school, clubs, societies, village settings. So it's not just sitting down every time having meetings. We should have things that will help us. If need be, the KBC had talked about medical certificate of fitness. People should know that medical certificate of fitness is not a punishment, not to give you the job, but it's for everyone to know that you are fit or you have this particular illness so that they can start taking care of it. It's not something to deny you of your job.
All right. How things can be interpreted, you know. People
those are the things we need to start to change our orientation. We don't need to discriminate against people. They are people. They have right to life, to work, and to be treated well.
So you have no qualms that the nominee was confirmed yesterday despite the fact that he slumped?
Yeah, well, he slumped there, but one of those people that have been confirmed before, does that mean that they don't have an ailment or something? It was just unfortunate to have slumped yesterday for whatever reason. So, but for him too, I think this is a wake-up call for him to go and do a comprehensive medical checkup and look at his life, change his lifestyle, and whatever is the problem, so he start to treat it. That should not deny him of political office.
So moving forward, it won't be a bad idea if those nominees will get medical certificates of fitness, because the job they are going to undertake is massive.
They should do it, not to get it.
Should do it.
Yes.
All right.
It's for you.
So at least the reason why lawmakers, governors should ensure that medical practitioners across the country are paid, well paid on time, because look, emergencies could happen to anyone. You never really know how some of those things should happen. And then above all else, National Assembly, they need to ensure that their staff are trained for these kind of scenarios. Life could have been lost there. So you can imagine it was in public glare. Ensure that the right things are done. Well, we have to thank you for coming on. Dr. Lawal Olami is the Chief Consultant Surgeon and Chief of Trauma, the National Trauma Center. We've also had Dr. Adetoye Alatishe, who is the founder of Alatishe Clinic in Ogun State. That's KBC, Begonde Oba of Ososha. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we'll be back in a moment and talk about the screening proper. Don't go away.